Welcome to another episode of AutoMundial, where this week we're bringing you the latest muscle car from America, the Dodge Charger Widebody.
We also have a pair of family SUVs, the Land Rover Discovery Sport and Honda CR-V.
And one of the last cheap sports cars, the Mazda MX-5. But first...
As the world continues to battle the coronavirus, manufacturers around the world are slowing down production, particularly in Europe. Car sales are predicted to fall by 20% this year, with various plants across the continent slowing down or stopping production entirely. The impacts of the virus on sales are being compounded by ever-tightening EU legislation, with CO2 output still a major factor in new car development.
While the company has come a long way from building utilitarian off-roaders for farmers, soldiers and adventurers, Land Rover is still adamant that it builds the best 4x4s by far, as they pave the way in the premium SUV market. But while the new Defender will be arriving in showrooms very soon, models wearing Range Rover badges currently outnumber the vaguely humbler offerings, with the Discovery Sport being the entry-level car.
Originally introduced as a replacement for the Freelander, the Discovery Sport still represents the cheapest way into green oval ownership, and now there's a new one. With few changes since its launch, the baby Discovery has received a substantial facelift. While styling may remain similar, it now features plenty of Evoque and Velar-inspired details and an overall more upmarket look. The cabin has had an overhaul too, with Land Rover's latest infotainment system sitting flush in the dash and a much cleaner design throughout. Like more expensive cars in the brand's lineup, many of the controls are now touch-sensitive, thanks to the second screen in the centre console. There's yet another screen lurking behind the steering wheel too, a 12.3-inch display showing guidance directions and some digital dials. The biggest changes, though, are under the skin. The Sport is now available with a whole new range of mild and plug-in hybrid powertrains. Fitted to all but the entry-level front-wheel drive diesel, the tried-and-tested 48-volt mild hybrid system cuts the engine out when decelerating below 11 miles per hour, saving plenty of fuel and reducing emissions when driving in town. The plug-in version uses a 3-cylinder petrol engine, something previously unheard of in a Land Rover. Official figures for this motor are yet to be announced, but it'll be on sale before the end of the year. While the inclusion of a 2-wheel drive version to the lineup will likely rile the purists, the 4-wheel drive models continue the Land Rover legacy with the unflappable Terrain Response 2 system that monitors conditions and automatically selects the appropriate settings and driving modes. That's not the only clever tech on offer. Featuring much of the new technology from the 2019 Evoque, the Discovery Sport is likely to remain Land Rover's best-selling model.
It doesn't have the market to itself though. The Volvo XC60 offers restrained style with plenty of kit and luxury. Available with a range of petrol and diesel engines, the top-spec hybrid model also offers blistering performance that can keep up with many current sports cars. Inside, the Volvo is a great example of minimalist design, helping to create an airy and modern cabin. The infotainment is also easier to use than the Discovery Sport's bewildering selection of touchscreens. Unlike the Discovery, however, the Volvo is only available with 5 seats, meaning buyers after 7 should look elsewhere. Then there's the Audi Q5, sitting in the middle of Audi's vast SUV lineup. The Q5 is a great compromise between size and practicality, with plenty of space and a relatively compact package. Like all current Audis, the interior is superbly finished, with all models coming loaded with gadgets. The build quality throughout is absolutely first class, but like the Volvo, there's no option for third-row seats. The boot is massive though, and even the rear seats are roomy enough for tall adults. However, while no cars in the class are exactly thrilling to drive, the Q5 misses the mark more than most. While there is a performance model on offer, more humble versions lack feel, and its off-road capabilities are, perhaps unsurprisingly, nowhere near those of the Land Rover.
So, is the updated Discovery Sport finally a class leader? Well, the thorough going over has certainly put it up there with our current favourites. It isn't quite as understated as the Volvo or as well built as the Audi, but with all that new tech and its hybrid powertrains, it certainly has what it takes to win new buyers, especially as the cheapest car in the desirable Land Rover range.
Two decades ago, if you wanted a small, affordable sports car for a bit of Sunday fun on rural roads or the track, you had plenty of choices. The Fiat Barchetta, BMW Z3, the Smart Roadster, the Audi TT and the Mercedes SLK were all within reach of the average person. And it shows in the sales. Fiat made nearly 60,000 Barchettas, while the Mercedes SLK sold in its thousands and was produced in some form until February last year. But now, modern renditions of these models have either been lost forever or are out of reach to those who want a second or third car for a bit of fun on a warm weekend. BMW Z4 Roadster now starts at over £37,000, and it's the same story with the Audi TT and the Alpine A110. These models have all fallen into the next price bracket. However, there is one car that has soldiered on, the plucky Mazda MX-5. Both affordable and fun, the Mazda MX-5 has been the best-selling two-seater convertible sports car since its launch in 1989. It also seems to have had more special editions than any other car we can think of. We've always praised the MX-5 here on AutoMundial, and the fourth generation model is arguably the best since the original. It's the perfect blend of lightweight and luxury, with just enough creature comforts thrown in. And now, Mazda has added some extra upgrades to coincide with the new decade for both the convertible and retractable fastback models. The talk of the town is the GT Sport Tech trim, the new range-topping option pack. This model features the more powerful, freer revving 2-litre engine that has been the top of the range since the introduction of the fourth generation in 2014. It revs all the way up to 7,500 RPM, delivering 181 brake horsepower and 0 to 62 miles per hour in 6 seconds. It's far from earth-shattering performance, but it's a real joy to drive as you thread through the corners, enjoying the perfect gearbox and the wind in your hair. Standard kit on the GT Sport Tech includes 17-inch BBS alloy wheels and on the inside some fancy Napa leather seats. But those aren't the only changes. Across all 10 models in the lineup, the MX-5 is available with polymetal grey metallic paint for the first time. And there's tons of extra standard equipment on the sport models and above. This includes smart city brake support, lane departure warning system, traffic sign recognition, and driver attention alert. The high-spec models also benefit from blind spot monitoring system with rear cross-traffic alert, adaptive LED headlights, and a reversing camera. The MX-5 has always been a somewhat old-school sports car, reminiscent of the Lotus Elans and Triumph Spitfires of the 1960s, but with a modern feel. And it's great to see that Mazda is so invested in its little roadster. So with such a modern feel and a nostalgia-driven car, and with the current lineup of affordable sports cars, as small as it is, you'd think that the MX-5 is the only go-to.
Not quite. There is one other. There used to be two, but Fiat has sadly stopped selling the gorgeous MX-5 base 124 Spider in many markets. So that just leaves us with this, the Toyota GT86. Sticking to the same basic front-engined rear-wheel drive format, the Toyota is a true driver's car. Not quite as quick as the MX-5, but to the Toyota's credit, greater driving feedback, a stiffer structure, and a more forgiving ride. It's getting on a bit now, but the GT86 is still a superb sports car. It doesn't get a soft top, but it gets a cramped pair of rear seats for an extra degree of practicality. Using an unusual 2-litre boxer engine, it puts out 197 brake horsepower, while 0 to 62 takes 7.6 seconds. That might not seem very fast, but with the low-ratio gearbox keeping you busy, it's a truly rewarding drive.
We can't help but love small sports cars, and the Mazda MX-5 is the pick of the bunch. It's the world's best-selling sports car for a reason. It's good-looking, utterly classless, and above all, an absolute blast to drive.
After the break, the 700 horsepower Dodge Charger Hellcat. Still to come, the 2020 Dodge Charger. But first,
When it launched in 1995, the Honda CR-V was one of the first compact SUVs on sale. Since then, the Honda has been a class favourite and hugely popular worldwide. In fact, since 2012, it has been Honda's best-selling model globally.
And for 2020, there are a few new things to shout about. Now in its 5th generation, the CR-V looks pretty much the same as the old model, but under the bonnet, there are several large changes. The first is the addition of a hybrid model. The CR-V Hybrid matches a 2-litre petrol engine with an electric motor and is available in both 2- and 4-wheel drive. The hybrid system is good, cutting in and out of EV mode seamlessly, but it is let down by the noisy gearbox. Petrol models are still available. The first, a 1.5-litre turbocharged engine combined with a 6-speed manual box and front-wheel drive, producing 171 brake horsepower. The second has 190 bhp, a CVT gearbox and 4-wheel drive as standard. While the CR-V has a similar overall size to the previous version, the wheelbase has been increased. So much so that the Honda can now be specified with 5 or 7 seats. While the rearmost row of seats is a bit cramped for anyone but young children, the extra seats do give the CR-V an advantage over its 5-seat rivals. There is also a small difference between the 5- and 7-seat model that may be a consideration. While in the 5-seat model the seats are fixed, the middle row in the 7-seater is not, which means there is slightly less headroom and they are a little further forward. Of course, this extra row of seats does come with a compromise. The boot in this generation is smaller than before, but it is still one of the largest in class at 536 litres with the seats in place. At the front of the cabin, there are plenty of handy cup holders and storage space. There's also loads of USB slots and, interestingly, an HDMI port. In true Honda fashion, it all feels as if it'll last forever, but sadly, it is let down by the infotainment system. It looks dated and isn't easy to use or quick to respond. Thankfully, though, it does have smartphone connectivity.
But in a segment of the market as crowded as this, the Honda doesn't have things all its own way. This is the Renault Koleos, with a fresh look for 2020. Renault's flagship SUV gets a host of new updates. The styling tweaks are pretty minor, with a new grille, altered side skirts with some chrome trim, and a new rear bumper with a questionable silver skid plate. Inside the cabin, the changes are more obvious. Much of the cheap old plastic has been replaced with some high-end soft touch material, while the seats are trimmed with a nicer selection of fabrics and leathers. Both the standard and optional portrait infotainment systems have been updated too, with some slick new software and Apple CarPlay. The whole interior feels that little bit posher and makes the whole car seem quite upmarket. Perhaps the biggest changes with the new facelift, though, are under the bonnet. There are two new diesel engines to choose from, a 148 brake horsepower 1.8 and a 187 brake horsepower 2-litre. Both are turbocharged and hooked up to a CVT gearbox, but only the bigger unit is available with four-wheel drive.
Both the Honda and the Renault offer interesting options to more run-of-the-mill alternatives from Volkswagen and Skoda, each with their own distinct styles. The Koleos feels very much like a big Clio, while the Honda feels just as well built as any of its old stablemates. It may be lacking for in-car tech, but it's a solid all-rounder for those who choose durability over anything else.
The Germans have always been good at super saloons. For decades, AMG and the M division have been taking four-door family cars, strapping in enormous engines and surprising Porsche drivers at the traffic light Grand Prix. Now, though, the Americans have had a go, and this is it, the Dodge Charger.
More specifically, this is the Dodge Charger Scat Pack Widebody. The name harks back to the 60s, where Dodge beefed up its already powerful muscle cars with more power, lowering their quarter-mile times in the process. Naturally then, this Scat Pack model has more power than a regular Charger, 485 horsepower to be exact, from its 6.4-litre V8. All power is sent to the rear wheels via an 8-speed transmission, resulting in a 0 to 62 time of just under 4.5 seconds. But the Americans have always been good at straight-line speed, so how about the corners? Well, that brings us neatly to the second part of the car's name, Widebody. This is the biggest difference for the 2020 model year shake-up. A standard Scat Pack is still available, looking much less butch with its narrower body, but for an extra $6,000, you get much more than just some swollen wheel arches. The Widebody gets 27% stiffer springs, as well as return shock absorbers and a Meteor rear sway bar. The tyres are wider too, a frankly ridiculous 11 inches from sidewall to sidewall, meaning you have a lot more grip than in the regular car. And the brakes have been upgraded too, with Brembo 6 pistons up front and 4 pistons at the rear, helping to control the 2-ton family hauler. But despite its rumbling V8 and muscle car stance, this Charger is still a proper saloon car. The interior won't exactly be keeping Mercedes designers up at night, but it has all the tech you'd expect in a $60,000 car, although some safety features like blind spot assist are optional. It's spacious too, with big comfy seats helping to distract from the dated dashboard. The infotainment's great though, and really easy to use. But the Scat Pack isn't the only fast Charger to have been updated for 2020. This is the mighty Hellcat, and it's received the same wide-body treatment. To the untrained eye, it looks the same as the Scat Pack, but lurking underneath the bonnet, or should we say hood, lies a supercharged 6.2-litre V8 pumping out 707 all-American horsepower. Needless to say, it's fast, really fast. It shaves off nearly a second from the Scat Pack's 0 to 60 time at 3.6 seconds, while flat out it will be knocking on the door of 200 miles per hour. Incredible for a car of this size. Unsurprisingly, unleashing this amount of power all at once tends to melt the rear tyres pretty quickly, but grip is improved with the Widebody's chunkier rubber. The wider tyres also help the initial turn-in, making the Hellcat less of a one-trick straight-line pony and a much better all-rounder.
But if it wants the Super Saloon crown, it'll need to face this, the Audi RS6. Yes, we know this is an estate car rather than a proper saloon, but the RS6 is finally available in North America, and it has the big Dodge firmly in its sights. The new version is perhaps the showiest one yet, with huge 22-inch alloys, wide arches, and the enormous front grille. Under the bonnet, you'll find a 4-litre bi-turbo V8 putting out 592 brake horsepower and a staggering 590 pounds-feet of torque. It's marginally quicker than the Hellcat from 0 to 60, making it a match for many modern supercars. Top speed is limited to 155, but for an extra bit of cash, Audi will take away the limiter, letting you and your family hit 189 miles per hour. All that torque is fed through an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission driving all 4 wheels. There's a very clever sport differential divvying it all up between the fronts and rears, meaning there's always going to be plenty of grip. Inside, it's as modern and up-to-date as you could possibly want, with stunning materials throughout and a wonderful infotainment system with RS-specific graphics. It even gets a mild hybrid system, something that Dodge Hellcat buyers probably aren't too familiar with.
But as impressive as the Audi is, it is more expensive and somehow lacks the charm and character of the big Dodge. The Audi's V8 sounds more subdued, while the cutting-edge cabin and all-wheel drive system make it feel a bit too grown up compared to the childish muscle car. Both of these cars are fabulous, but if you follow your heart instead of your head, the Dodge wins every time.
Join us again next week on AutoMundial as we explore the new Audi RS4 and an electric concept car from Dacia.